Anyway, not to worry. Arsenal fans have got a lot in their minds this morning. Good morning, everybody. If you watched that last night, did you watch it right to the bitter end, Simon? I must admit, you always get nervous when it comes to penalties because you think this could go any which way.
I didn't have any doubt that Arsenal would overcome Porto, even when it got to penalties. I thought the extra time of 30 minutes was an absolute snore fest because no one really attempted to win the game. But I just felt that Arsenal would win on penalties. I just felt that they had the wherewithal.
Well, he's great on pens anyway. He's a huge guy to keep Raya.
Well, ironically, the pundit of the year, Ali McCoist, was suggesting that they should be substituting him because Ramsdale apparently, even though he admitted on air he'd never actually seen Ramsdale save a penalty, should have been substituted on. So I didn't quite know where Ali was going. He has saved pens.
He's actually good as well. But Raya's great on pens. He's massive. And his first save was brilliant.
What I did like was Ramsdale congratulating Raya at the end, which was good to see. And now the confirmed quarter-finalists, Danny: Arsenal, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Manchester City, PSG, Real Madrid, and tonight we've got Dortmund against PSV and Atletico against Inter. So 2 of those 4 will join the rest.
Well, in some ways I was quite pleased for them because I think from a Liverpool angle in the title, I would imagine Liverpool and City want Arsenal staying in Europe, because it makes it more difficult to win the league when you're playing game every, the quarter-finals, semi-finals, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And from a neutral point of view, having English clubs in the latter stages is great because the next round will be even more exciting. Rather than watching Porto Munich, it could be Arsenal Bayern Munich, for example. So that's good. But I do think the game showed, that it's balance. Of course, if they went out, it's a catastrophe. Now they've gone through. Arteta's, the new messiah. The reality is somewhere in between that they are moving forward. They're a hell of a good side. But I think last night at times it showed that they're not Champions League savvy. They could have got done on a few counters. And a few of their players looked more nervy playing last night than they did in any of the Premier League games I've seen them.
Okay.
And I understand why.
Yeah.
That Champions League, when you get to the final stages, it is nerve-wracking. It's a different atmosphere. It's a different opposition.
And Porto are no mugs.
No mugs at all.
No.
They played really well.
I agree. But, for the first time in 14 years, Arsenal are in the Champions League quarter-finals. This is different from last season, Simon, when it was thought they might choke, bottlers, etc., etc. This is different. This has got a different feel to it.
Well, so
they've seen it out.
Well, so it should, because they've improved the playing squad, spent a lot of money, and they've got the experience. And there's nothing wrong with making mistakes. There's only something wrong with repeating the same mistakes you've made before. So if you've learnt lessons and you've developed a bit more fortitude, a bit more resilience, and you're moving through the gears, then you'd expect them to be better. Now, they still have to achieve something.
Yeah.
Getting to the quarterfinals of the Champions League and getting knocked out, okay, fantastic. It looks better than they've done previously, but it's still not winning anything. Getting second again in the Premier League, if that's what they achieve, again, will be standing still. I thought that Arsenal would do well to stand still, and they'd have to spend £250 million to stand still. I do think they're markedly better. I do think there's a lot about Arsenal that one should admire. But, the argument that we have, and we keep on having about the bottling terminology, I don't care what people want to characterise it as. They did allow the league to slip away from them. It's got nothing to do with what Manchester City did. Manchester City do what Man City do. If Arsenal had maintained their performances, they would have won the league. They didn't, which means they choked when they had an opportunity to win the league. Now, we will see this time round, but they are markedly better. Arteta is a better manager. They're a better team.
Yeah.
People like Havertz are even adding some value. And I don't care what people think of my observations of Havertz. I think he's £65 million badly spent. But that's up on Arsenal. And if they want to make him into a player, then good luck on them. But the point is that Arsenal are through to the quarterfinals, and whoever they get is whoever they get.
Well, the thing is, you know what? It's a thin line, isn't it, between success and failure? Because the reality is, if Arsenal were to go on and win the Champions League, we've still got a hell of a long way to do. No one would remember that they didn't play particularly well and went through on penalties.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
I was at Liverpool. Our first trophy that got us over the line, we were awful. We won on penalties against Championship side, but no one really remembers it now.
Yeah.
You need a bit of luck along the way.
Of course.
All great managers have a bit of luck along the way.
If you could tell Arteta, though, way back at the beginning of the season, 13th of March, you're going to be joint top of the Premier League. Oh, as well as that, you're in the quarterfinals of the Champions League. Be like, what? I'll have that.
Absolutely.
Big time have that. He had a little fallout with his counterpart, Sergio Conceição of Porto. We'll get to that shortly. But Arteta, thrilled at the achievement.
A magic night. What we expected, a really tough opponent, really well organized, very difficult to generate constant momentum in the game and the way they play, and that's credit to them. We did it. We scored a beautiful goal. from there we insisted probably in different ways that the way the game allows as well. And it's a huge experience for us. We had to do it at the end through the penalties. We prepared well, credit to the coaches as well, the way they've done it. And obviously for David, I had some difficult moments to start, but he stood up with incredible personality and ambition, and at the end he got rewarded in his moment.
So they got there. Danny, what's tougher to win, the Premier League or the Champions League?
The Premier League's probably tougher. I mean, the Champions League, you can get a more favourable draw to get yourself there. When you look at some of the teams who've got to the final of Champions Leagues and you look at their run, you might have one game or two games where it's tough, but the rest of it's been pretty kind to you. The Premier League, you don't get that. You have to play everyone twice, and I'd say it's harder. Yeah, it's more games.
Different mentality, though.
Very mentality similar in terms of having resilience, being able to motivate yourself every 3 or 4 days in big games and perform in different arenas.
But you still think Arsenal were a bit naive last night?
Not naive, but they just looked a little bit nervous compared to how dominant they've been in Premier League. Even Saliba, who I think is an unbelievable player, he's young. He's going to be. Even he looked a little. He wasn't his. Both games actually, he wasn't as on top of his passing, or he just looked a bit edgy. A few of them did in terms of possession, and I get it, because what happens in the Champions League, Jim, is one mistake in a second leg, or even a first leg really, but a second leg game, one bad ball, you can be done. You can be done.
That's
and if they scored Porto 2-0, there's a mountain to climb.
Yeah.
Whereas in the Premier League, you play more free because you can make a mistake. You still got time. Well, you got the next game.
Well, doesn't that make the Champions League more difficult to win then?
Well, you could argue it, but it depends on your squad as well. The reality is you can get to a Champions League final. If you look at Tottenham's run to the final, other than Man City, it was a pretty comfortable run when they got to the final against Liverpool.
Mm-hmm.
And Tottenham weren't anywhere near winning the Premier League. So it depends. There's lots of caveats to it. Ultimately, winning the Premier League, 38 games, you got to be bang on it.
Yeah.
Whereas Champions League, these days you can have a decent squad in the group stage and cruise through. Most of them do, the top teams. And then if you get a reasonably fortunate draw in the knockouts, you don't have a tough game until the semi-final, quarter-final.
Let's put it out there, actually. Let's hear from Arsenal fans this morning. Come on, because you are moving at a pace going through this season. You're in the quarter-final draw of the Champions League. You're joint top of the Premier League. What is realistically on for you this season?
I tell you what, I bet they take the Champions League, a lot of them ahead of the Prem.
Well, we talk about Liverpool and this potential quadruple. What are Arsenal on the verge of achieving? What might they achieve? What will be more prestigious to win? The Champions League or the Premier League? 03717 223344 810 89. Yeah, something's on for Arsenal.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.